scriptures it is mentioned incidents is ordained by providence. How should we understand an act? We see that sometimes the devotees accept a situation with resignation, and other times try to oppose it. Well, we were just reading something today in Chaitanya Charitamrita about Advaitacharya and 3 sons who were loyal to him and accepted Mahaprabhu, and 3 sons who weren't loyal. And it said, as ordained, something to the effect, as ordained by providence, a schism developed. Okay, so understanding as ordained by providence, that means by some divine arrangement, things just develop that way. So you say here, we see that sometimes the devotees accept a situation with resignation, and other times try to oppose it. But, I mean, I was with Srila Govinda Maharaj, and Srila Govinda Maharaj, when he told to Siddhanti Maharaj, he said, Maharaj, we're all getting our karma full. So somebody can say, well, I thought devotees are not subject to karma. But apparently they are. It's maybe they think they should be because they're engaged in devotional service. So I thought the devotional service is exempt from karma, except maybe it's not. Or maybe it is for Param Vaishnavas, but maybe we don't fall into the category of Param Vaishnavas. So it's kind of like wrong for us to expect to be exempt from karma. And maybe that would also apply to the term as ordained by providence. I mean, maybe there are some things that you think you should be able to change because you're following devotional service, you should be exempt from the will of divine providence, but apparently you're not. So, but if some people, devotees, they accept the situation with resignation, and other times trying to oppose it. Well, that kind of sounds to me like both things are the same. One is accepting it with resignation. Well, why with resignation? If it's ordained by divine providence, why accept it with resignation? But if you want to feel that you have to accept it, but you're doing so with a sense of protest or resignation, then maybe you don't understand what ordained by divine providence means. And other devotees try to oppose it. Okay, good luck with that. Let me know how that works for you. You're trying to oppose something that's ordained by divine providence, and you're trying to oppose it. Okay, maybe you're figuring that you've given some more, say in Spanish, you've given some kind of a bribe, and therefore you'll be exempt from the as ordained by divine providence. But I mean, I'm trying to understand this question that some people accept ordained by divine providence. I mean, as I mentioned, Govinda Maharaj telling Siddhanti Maharaj, we're all getting our karma full. So that means the results of our previous experiences. And as Guru Maharaj, Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentioned, he said that there's a saying that a bad worksman complains of his tools. Like if I had, I can't play the violin very nicely. It sounds like the screeching of cats. But if I had a Stradivarius, I would be able to play very nicely. So you're complaining about your tools, the tools that you've been given, thinking, well, if I had a better computer, if I had a better car, everything would go nicely. but so you're complaining about your tools, but then Srila Srinamar said there's another way we could say that a bad workman complains about his stools. In other words, complains about what's going through his organic system, meaning that he's eaten some nice prasadam, but now it's coming out as some smelly stool. And he's very disgusted. And he goes, "Ugh, stool." But then the stool replies to him, just 12 hours ago, I was delicious prasadam and everybody relished me. But now in just a few hours association with you, I become untouchable. So whose fault is that? And who is going to complain? Who is going to complain about, that who's going to complain? Here we're hearing ordained by providence, as if I've got some control over that. Because I'm a devotee and I shouldn't be subject to providence. I shouldn't be subject to karma. I shouldn't be subjected to the reactions of my own activities. I should be exempt from those things. But as I remember, I heard one devotee, he was complaining to another devotee. This other devotee actually was the husband of one devotee lady who had 2 children with him. But then later she had a child with another devotee. And then that second devotee was complaining to the first devotee, who was the husband of the original 2 children. The second devotee was the husband of another child. And he told the first devotee, he said, our wife is cheating on us. And then that first devotee said, well, maybe we should join a syndicate or a union. So in other words, you're complaining about what's divine ordained by providence. So maybe you should join a union and maybe they'll help you. Maybe you can join a syndicate. The remark by the devotee, the first husband, the first devotee who was the father of the 2 original children, he told the other person who had 1 child with his ex-wife, who was saying, she's cheating on us. And then he said, oh, maybe we should join a union or a syndicate. I guess these things happen as ordained by divine providence. Okay, next question. Can I consider that we answered that first question or no? Someone complaining about that answer? Oh, here's one complaint. Why are you dealing so flippantly with what is supposed to be a serious subject? Oh, okay. All right. So I'll go on to the next question. How to deal with situations if we lose someone in our family, the pain of loss. Well, whether we're devotees or whether we're talking about people in outside society, everyone has to deal with the pain of loss. If you're a devotee or you're not enlightened with devotional philosophy or practice, still, we will have to deal with the pain of loss, because we've all had to deal with the death of some close family member, father or mother, a brother or a sister, or someone dear to us. And it doesn't become any easier to deal with in one sense the fact that we're engaged in devotional service, because everyone is subject to this kind of bereavement. Now, of course, we hear in the case of what is it? The case, is it Srivas Thakur? I'm trying to think, who's Srivas Thakur, I believe. He had a son who passed away. Is that correct?
Yes, man.
And was it Srivas Thakur, or was it who was Shivananda Sen? Maybe it was Shivananda Sen. Is that?
Well, if it was in the house of Sribas Pandit, while Mahaprabhu was enjoying his nocturnal kirtan, one of his sons passed away.
Srivas Thakur.
Yeah, and he's told everyone, don't say anything to Mahaprabhu, I don't want to disturb him.
Okay, and so, yeah, he told everyone, don't disturb Mahaprabhu's kirtan. But Mahaprabhu could understand that there's been some tragedy in the house. And Mahaprabhu was informed of the situation. And then Mahaprabhu brought back to life that son of Srivas Thakur who passed away, and said, why did you leave? You were in the family of Srivas Thakur. Why have you why have you gone? And he said, my dear Lord, I'm your eternal subject, your eternal servant, and I'm subject to your divine will. So I was able to come here to this wonderful family of Srivas Thakur for some time and spend some time with them. And now by divine arrangement, I have had to move on. So I'm moving on, but this is all according to your divine will. And then that soul took permission and again died. And everyone heard that, and then they understood, well, this is, we are sad about the situation, but this is the divine arrangement of the Lord. We cannot lament as to what is the natural arrangement and the plan of the Lord. What is the natural flow of divinity? So everybody in this world, they're all subject to these principles. And as what is it? Yamaraj, no, not Yamaraj, pardon me, as Yudhishthira Maharaj said, Yudhishthira Maharaj said, he answered Yamaraj's questions, and he said, everybody has seen that their father has passed away, or their mother has passed away, or their grandparents has passed away, their friends and relatives have passed away. But nobody is acknowledging that, in the sense that everybody is planning out their lives as if they're going to live forever. But it's not a fact. It's not a fact. Although we've seen that death is there for everyone, still we are not conscious. We are not immediately conscious of that fact. But it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter if we can understand philosophically that our loved ones, they're eternal souls, and they never die, they never born, and they never die. But that's not going to take away the pain of loss for us. It's not going to take away the pain of loss. We're still going to be subject to the pain of loss of losing someone dear to us. And why is that? Because we're not machines. We're not machines. We may be able to understand something on the basis of scripture and there's something on the basis of philosophy, but that's not going to change the loss that one feels when someone dear to one passes away, except, and here's the first, we always have some footnotes saying the exceptions. Like when we see that someone who's loved by us is going through great pain, and then that person passes away, we may think, oh, he or she is better off because she was in such pain or he was in such pain. They're better off having passed away. Then we may feel that way. And we have felt that also. We see somebody that's in great pain, and then they pass away, and we think, well, it's better now because the person was suffering so much. Then it's better. But these are very complex things. What is said? How to deal with situations if we lose someone in our family, the pain of loss. Well, you'll have to deal with that according to your understanding, devotional principles, and what it means that, we're always reading at the time of Shraddha, the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita about the eternality of the soul. So on that level, we can deal with things. But sometimes we're advised that if somebody's a devotee, we don't necessarily have to deal with all those issues, in the sense that what is the saying? The saying is that one should live one's life in such a way that when one comes into this world, one is crying, but everybody else is happy. So we see that a child is born, or, someone's born, and to get that person to breathe, he comes out of the womb, someone slaps him on the backside, and the baby, or, recently born, begins to breathe, and at the same time starts crying. That's the way often people come into this world. They're given a slap, they start breathing, and they start crying. But everyone else around, oh, the boy has been born, or the girl is born, and everybody's happy and they're dancing. But the recently born person is crying. But you're supposed to live in such a way that when you leave this world, you're very happy and everyone else is crying. And we've seen that with the great souls. When someone comes into this world, they're crying and everyone else is happy. But if your things are going well in terms of your devotional life, when you leave, everybody will be crying, but you'll be very happy. So that situation that's very nice, to live in that way, that when I leave this world, I'll be happy and everyone else will be sad. Now, as in terms of how to deal with the pain of losing a family member, well, I guess there are different remedial measures that you can take to deal with the loss of a family member. One, you may get drunk. 2, you may chant mantras. 3, you may get drunk and chant mantras. 4, you may organize a Irish wake where everyone. Anyway, how to deal with situations if we lose someone in our family, the pain of loss? We'll have to deal with that. Oh, Lakshmi Kanti, ¿Cómo estás?
I'm okay, Maharaj, Dandavad pranams to all the devotees.
Yo te pediría un favor,
Yes.
que yo pediría que tú vas al templo de Londres, aunque no tengan la foto de Neri Maharaj en el altar. Porque,
I haven't go because of time, actually.
okay, all right.
It's hard because the only days I have off are Sundays now, and sometimes Wednesdays.
Okay, because
So
I've
it's
tried
kinda
to,
hard.
yeah, I've tried to establish it with all the temples that having the temples, have Acharya Maharaj's photo on the altar, which is natural, and that's been going on. And the idea with Neriya Maharaj, that's principally for why I also wanted to do that is for India, because India is a mess. And I wanted to establish that in India so that people would understand that he's Acharya Maharaj's successor. But what that means to each person in each temple, I guess, will vary according to what their own understanding is. So if somebody's in Russia, I don't expect necessarily that they will, you understand what I'm saying anyway. Okay. So next, we've gone through the two questions, how to deal with situations if we lose someone in our family, the pain of loss. And it's spelled lose, L-O-O-S-E. Is that the correct spelling of lose?
Maybe of loose, not of loss, though.
Yeah. Or what about of lose, L-O-S-E? Is that?
Yeah, lose and
Lose.
Yeah, L-O-S-E, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just mentioning. Because a lot of times people spell it L-O-O-S-E, but I think that's a mistake.
Yeah, I think so.
Loose. Loose. That's like something is loose. Like my head. All right. Gaur Chandra, do we have any questions from you? How about from Falguni? I think Gaur Chandra's gone. He was here. He was here a minute ago.
Yeah, it seems to have gone. Oh, no,
Just-
no, he's there. He's still
No,
there.
I see Falguni. Well, there's Gaur Chandra. Do you have any questions?
Dandavad pranam, Maharaj. I'm just having some technical issues.
Technical issues.
Yeah, I couldn't unmute. How are you?
Good.
Okay, my question is how can, it's more like a general question. How can we give relief to people that we know when they are suffering from material? It's mainly from material things, but it's obvious that it's from lack of having some kind of faith and believing.
No, I
in
don't
something
think
great.
that's the cause. I don't think that's the cause. I'm just trying to get a glass of water. I'm remembering where Guru Maharaj talks about, Gadadhar Pandit supplying the wine or to Mahaprabhu, who is suffering due to separation from himself. That's more or less the gist of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that wine, in this case, was the Srimad Bhagavatam. He was reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So sometimes people are suffering and to help them in their loss. I mentioned getting drunk, but actually this is a bad joke. But what we really want to say is that we will be supplied with some kind of something that will give them relief from their pain. Now, in the case of Mahaprabhu, it was the Srimad Bhagavatam, which acted as, we could say, intoxicant, or the wine which would relieve him of the pain of his separation. So apparently we can think that there is something that we can take that will help us in our feelings of grief, especially at the separation from someone dear to us. So I would suggest that maybe that's something that can give us some relief, is association of devotees chanting the holy name and engaged in kirtan, that maybe that will actually give us some association. If I was actually suffering some pain, I would want to be in the association of devotees. That's kind of my consideration. That will give me some solace, will give me some relief. And if those devotees can be engaged in kirtan, that will be especially some relief. So I remember when Srila Govinda Maharaj left this world, then 11 days later, I believe, just to have a number, 11 days later, we're going to have a program in Srila Govinda Maharaj's honor. And that program was to be held in Navadip, I believe, right? So I was there. While I was waiting for that 11 days, I got a message that my mother was passing away about the same time. Govinda Maharaj had already passed away. So one of my friends, Hindu friend, devotee, told me, well, you should go back immediately to be there with your mother before she passed away, because she was passing away, but she had gone. And I said, no, I'm not going to leave until we have the final program for Srila Govinda Maharaj here in Navadip. So I waited for that. And then after that, I left to go be with my mother before she passed away. But I didn't get there in time. The day I arrived in California, she passed away. So, Kent, but, what can we do? What can we do under those circumstances? Well, we can understand things philosophically or through the scriptures, like the second chapter, but I would prefer to be engaged in kirtan along with the devotees. That would seem to be a good way of dealing with some grief. And I think we already answered the question previously about how to deal with grief and loss. What is the nature of your question, Falguni? Can you rephrase it? Tú puedes decir tu pregunta de nuevo para que entiendo lo que quieres.
Yes, it's more like it's not how us to deal with the grief. It's more how can we give comfort to people that we know that is very likely to be having a lot of grief due to not having any faith.
Well, I think for that, from what I understand what you're saying, the best thing to deal with those persons is to just, maybe this doesn't sound right, but to preach to those persons so that they can understand what is the nature of the soul, what is the nature of our relationship with the person. And I believe you can because you're a devotee, you'll be able to supply them with the most relief of anyone. Someone who's not a devotee can't really help that person so much. Maybe to a certain extent, because out of kindness, they can help that person. But I think because of kindness and understanding of our devotional principles, you're in a position to explain to that person how, in such a way to satisfy them in their grief. Because we're always talking to people and we're always relating with people, and we understand that there is not one formula to deal with all situations. We have to react, or we have to, base our in exchange with that person based on what that person's feeling, what that person says. Because you can't just have a program that you just push a key and this is what I'm going to say. In order to really give some comfort to somebody, you have to let that person speak, understand what they are feeling, what is the cause of their grief, and then you will be able to answer based on what they're communicating with you. You have to be able to hear from that person and understand from that person what they are feeling, because you can't just expect that I will say this and that will give them some magic, that will give them some magic, pill that will satisfy their situation. The answer to that will come in terms of you speaking with that person and understanding what the cause of their pain is, and then you can answer them based on what you're understanding, because somebody may not understand anything really of devotional principles, but still be able to help the person out of their kindness. So that's what I'm considering, that you or anyone like you who's a devotee, who understands devotional principles and also is by nature kind, you'll be able to deal with that person. Doesn't matter if you memorize the whole, Bhagavad Gita or the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's not a question of knowledge. It's a question of, relating with that person, as Govinda Maharaj would always say, heart-to-heart transmission. So that's what we're looking for. And that's the form of communication that we want to deal with, based on the exchange of the loving feelings of that person's heart and how you're going to respond to that person. I mean, that's the way it's always going to be. It's always going to be on that basis. There is no formula. There is no verse that answers all questions. It's a question of, what that person communicates to you and what you feel they need to, what you need to be able to say to that person to give them some relief. And is there any situation that there might not be any answer? Yes, I imagine there's an infinite number of possibilities of everything. But I think out of as a practicing, Gaudiya Vaishnava, and understanding what the person is feeling, you'll be able to communicate with that person and answer their grief. It will be natural that people in your family, they will expect or want to get some help from you, because they understand that as a devotee, you're in the best position to be able to give them some kind of relief, some kind of solace. They will understand that. Isn't that true? Devashis, do you believe that's true?
Yes, Maharaj, I think so. I think people intuitively know that devotees have something, some deeper insight in life.
Yeah. And we've all had to deal with those situations. We've all had to deal with the loss of persons dear to us, what to speak of the loss of our spiritual master. We've all had to go through that. We've all had to go through that more than once. Mostly, most people, more than once. Do they have any other questions? I mean, the questions today are dealing with subjects like ordained by providence, loss of some family member or someone dear to us. Why, is there something going on at the present time I'm not aware of?
I think there's been quite a few people in our community who've had death in their family recently. I can think of 3 immediately.
Yeah, well, I've had to deal with, I mean, the loss of so many persons here close to me in this community, devotees who passed away who didn't even reach 70 years of age, at least 10 or 12. At least 10 or 12. And I don't exactly understand. I thought the life expectancy was increasing, according to the scientists. And then when people don't even reach the age of 70, I mean, I thought when Srila Prabhupada, when he went to America, there was some speech, there was something published in a book, maybe by Cindy Steamship Line or something, and it said, beyond his allotted, 70 years. So I thought that was the general allotted amount of time that most people would be getting, 70 years, which means 70 years, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like, and I'm not just talking about COVID, independent of COVID, many people, in fact, I would say, it would seem like when I was young, people passed away mostly from what I remember from heart attack. But now seems like more people pass away from cancer than anything else. And I think that's also because the present society seems to be consuming processed goods at a great rate. I mean, everything seems to be very processed. Like one of the products, I don't know if they have it there in England, but they have something here called oral wheat bread. And you can open a loaf of oral wheat and put it on your shelf and not even have it wrapped up or something, and it won't grow any mold in over a month. Somehow or other, that seems unnatural to me. It doesn't get any mold or anything. It's eternal. It's eternal bread. And I would think that if something doesn't grow any mold on it, maybe it's very highly processed. Is that possible?
I think so.
So if it's processed, that it doesn't even break down from mold. I'm wondering what it does in your stomach.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have some a healthy balance of chemicals or preservatives or something. And do those same preservatives, that they preserve you also in a bad way?
Pickle you. Pickle you. Make
Or
you into a pickle.
make you into a maybe. Well, it's no, our bread lasts a long time because it's given a good, it has a certain amount of formaldehyde in it.
Mm.
Well, it's I don't know what it is. Anyway, I'm feeling that people don't die of heart attacks, they die of cancer, maybe because they're eating so many processed goods. But I mean, I find that I'm consuming more and more processed goods as the amount of devotees who know how to cook decreases and decreases. So, but at least the devotees from Venezuela, they can always make arepas. And arepas taste pretty good. So at least you have something to fall back upon. And arepas aren't processed. They're just made with flour. So they're quite good.